They're the same
You're
people
right.
saying Omnipotence is the best plot twist of all time. Like, what do you mean? There's no other explanation.
You know, Omnipotence has some good aspects to it. And in terms of Kawaki's character and Ada's character, and I think that it can use it for... I don't like it in the... Ironically, I don't like it in the Omnipotence arc. I only really like it, and more so in terms of current Kawaki and Ada. But for the most part, I don't really care for Omnipotence. I only like a certain aspect of it. Two certain aspects of it. But that's it. For the most part, I don't like it.
God.
There's so many better things they could have done.
Yeah. Most of them just try to ignore the flaws.
Straight
like,
up
no
hate Boruto, like,
it.
for real. like, why can't we just do that?
Like, there's already reason there. Like, they even set it up already with the whole Shinobi world wanting to turn against Boruto with the 4 Kage trying to convince Naruto to kill his son.
Well, like, all they had to do was just make Momoshiki do worse and worse things until it was the point of no return. To the point, like, Sasuke the 5 Kage Summit, where it's like, how can anyone actually redeem this guy? Almost no one thought they could. You really just had, like, Naruto, for the most part, being like, no, let's not give up. And in this case, you could have Naruto, again, being the one guy saying, no, I'm not giving up on my son, but the whole world is against him. That works. We don't need a lie ability. Like, and in the case of Ada's omnipotence thing, Ada's, like, you could just keep a lot of the... In terms of Ada's character, we can keep pretty much the same concept. Just say she can only... Like, this is a variant of omnipotence. Or the love charm works based off her internal desire, and this is what she desires. And just, like, keep all that the same without the role reversal part. Like, you know, for the most part, we don't need to change Ada's character for this. Like...
If we're doing this, though, and I think we should have done this, but if we were going that route, I need Borushiki to be more than just an accident. I need it to be Boruto's flaw, to where he, like, has a rage mode or something, completely his fault, a mistake, but then that's why he enters Borushiki mode. But, and then Borushiki has to do something catastrophic to where he's no longer allowed to go back. The no turning back point, whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it shouldn't be an accident. It should be Boruto's mistake. That's what I'm putting in my rewrite. Even with Omnipotence still being in the story, I'm leaving it for the hell of it. But yeah, regardless, Boruto should have probably more than one mistake going on. I think that there's plenty of mistakes. Not taking the pills anymore, being cocky, and giving in, like, to being too weak on his own, relying on the karma seal in Momoshiki, maybe directly, and potentially, you know, like, there's so many aspects that, like, they could use that just make it be Boruto's fault that this happens. And then the world hates him, and he has to overcome that. That just works.
Exactly. The point of the fault, by the way, for those who aren't following along, is the fact that they can't just hate Borushiki, because everyone already did, so there's no change if they don't just not hate Boruto. They have to hate Boruto too. Why are they going to hate Boruto? Well, not because of Boruto, but because of, like we're saying right now, these flaws. He's cocky, arrogant, mistaken, whatever. He's rage-filled, he stopped taking his pills, he's being irresponsible. So
exactly. Like, Boruto is being irresponsible about the threat he poses. It's almost like, not to say that he doesn't care, but to an extent, it's almost like, from their perspective, it's like Boruto just didn't care about their safety. He was that relaxed about what he was doing when he should have known better. It's almost like, I know it's not exactly the same, but to some extent, it's kind of like Naruto just always relying on Kurama's chakra to get to the Tenchi Bridge arc. It's almost, he carelessly let himself be consumed by Kurama, and that hurt Sakura. And Naruto, of course, felt bad about it, but it didn't amount to, like, a village busting situation, but the concept is there. He carelessly let that happen. Exactly. And that was his fault and no one else's.
In that moment,
works perfectly well for Borushiki, but in this case, we're going to make it have a bigger consequence
In
because
that
it's the end of
moment,
part 1.
the conflict there was human versus self because Sakura and Yamato weren't mad at Naruto, and no one else in the world was either. In this case, it would be world versus self, or you guys like people versus self, like everyone versus self, to where it's everyone against Boruto rather than Boruto down on himself. But like maybe at the end he can realize that, that'd be fine, in the same way that he does in the very first arc of the series, going Alpha and Omega on it. But in this case, it's almost like it would work with the Naruto instance, because everyone in the village sort of already hated Naruto because he's the Nine Tails anyways. And so if Naruto proves them right, proves their point, hey, this is the Nine Tails brat who can't control it, and he's gonna kill us all one day, then yeah, they would hate Naruto even more. Like they'd feel validated in their feelings, which means they would need to feel the same way about Boruto from the beginning. The fact that he
But
is
in this
Momoshiki.
case, though, it's about the prophecies, at least the way it's indicated, it's about the shift. How Boruto caused himself to go from having everything to losing everything. Whereas in Naruto's case, it would just be like, well, he already had nothing. It's the shift that's supposed to be important in this prophecy. So I don't think Boruto needs to start off being hated by everyone.
No, not start off.
Anyway.
It's like a gradual thing, but it's not really present, but you just know it's building. It's like the ticking talk,
like it's
the ticking clock with the not residence. The what is it? The extraction 100% thing. There you go.
Yeah, like at some point it's gonna happen. Like at some point it'll boil over. Boruto carelessly feels like that won't be the case, despite Momoshiki's warnings. And you can even take like, Momoshiki's warnings could have like a reverse psychology effect to where it influences Boruto's decisions. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. The point is, he carelessly ignored Momoshiki's warnings, ignored Amato's pills and his like advice to keep taking them. He ignored this, he ignored that, he ignored. Let's just say, it'd be even better if a character previously warned Boruto not to use karma or something. Like, and he just ignores everyone's warnings. Is the point? Yeah. And then, funnily enough, Mitsuki has a dialogue after Omnipotence, like, you ignored all their warnings, now you're paying the price. You could almost have a thing where that just is the case. The only problem though is, I don't think we can have Mitsuki being mad at Boruto in this case. I don't know how we get Mitsuki to be mad at Boruto.
Well, back then we didn't know what the sun even meant, so we would just write it to where the sun means something else. We could make that work. Or even if Boruto just kills Mitsuki and then Orochimaru makes another clone, and that clone hates Boruto. You'd probably hate that too, though, but, you know, possibility.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that. I honestly just wonder, maybe we just don't have Mitsuki be mad at Boruto like that. Honestly speaking, I mean, we lose Sage Mitsuki rage in that case, but I mean, realistically though, we could just have. No, I don't like that either.
You could have Boruto kill Mitsuki, but Mitsuki be brought back, which could also work.
I was gonna say we could just have Mitsuki fight Kawaki instead, but then how are we gonna get to the Borushiki situation? The only way would be if Kawaki just beats Mitsuki and is fresh enough to keep fighting. But
plus, if Mitsuki's not around Boruto for 3 years, it's possible that he could like let Boruto go to some degree and find a son in the rest of the village, like Kawaki, or just somewhere else, to where he realizes what he realized now, that he doesn't need a son, he doesn't need Boruto, because he's forced to be away from him. So that he could start seeing Boruto the same way everyone else
that
does.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the part 1 rage mode aspect though. Like, what would be a good way to lead into that?
Yeah.
But I don't know if there is a good way. You might just have to not have that scene, honestly. But
instead of raging at Boruto, he's raging because Momoshiki's taking control. We just still have that be the case.
Yeah, I think that would just work better. Just have like just have Mitsuki be mad at Momoshiki and he fights Momoshiki, and that's just that. Instead, that just works, I guess.
Yeah. I was also thinking, you haven't seen this, but like, this is a really big rewrite at this point. This completely changes Boruto as a character in general. But if you just change Boruto to be like the solo leveling main character at the end of season 1, to where I haven't seen the manga or anything, so I don't know, no spoilers, whatever, blah blah. But like, it seems like because he's becoming way more OP now, he's way more drunk on power hungry, whatever, so he's becoming a lot more arrogant, cocky, demeaning, looking down on everyone. It's like it's sort of like the light Yagami shift at the beginning of the story. In a way, yeah, you could have that for Boruto, but again, that's kind of completely changing his character. But then you can also like have him realize it at the end of part 1.
That's kind of what he does. It's just not the most satisfying. But
exactly.
I mean, looking at his demeanor, the way he seems to approach things on the time skip, I personally like the idea. He over relied on the karma. He was cocky and arrogant in terms of his control of karma and so on. And that just plays into him now avoiding using it, really focusing on making himself strong instead of his self with the karma strong and being afraid of actually using it for that matter. That just works well. Like that's a way, because honestly speaking, I'm gonna at this point kind of assume they're more or less going to have something happen during the time skip that's basically our rewrites for the end of part 1. Like they're basically just gonna put it into the time skip itself, which is stupid, but that's kind of what they're doing, because otherwise it doesn't make sense for Kashin, Koji, and Boruto to even have this knowledge in the first place. Like it had to be based off something. So Momoshiki probably did this rampage once before. So I mean, like they're just gonna do it.
Well, Momoshiki having the rampage over the time skip would be similar to like the Foretales over the time skip. It's another parallel to that.
Yeah, that's how I expect. I kind of expect what they're going to do in this case is basically the Foretales thing. They reference it, then it's gonna happen, and then they're gonna. They might show. They'll show the flashback of it after the fact. They could do it either way. I think having Kashin, Koji, and Orochimaru talk about it, or maybe they reference it, or whatever, and then it happens, and then they show the flashback, or maybe they don't show the flashback. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, they're gonna reference it, then it's gonna happen in the present. It's basically gonna be like the Foretales thing.
Yeah.
But I just think that works for Boruto's prophecy. It would have been better served as an end of part 1 thing versus a Foretales parallel.
I agree. And for anyone in chat who may be questioning why we're giving Boruto all these different flaws or mistakes at the end of part 1, like cocky arroganceness, and I compare to like solo leveling, the reason that we have to do that and that it sounds goofy is because it's already there in the main canon timeline, but they never explained it, which I've freaking ranted about this 16 different times in the totality of this podcast. But the fact they never wrote the reason why Boruto feels this way, that he can just control the karma and all the other mistakes he makes, he's just being irresponsible for no reason. We just don't understand why, and that's a problem. So that's why we're having to fill in the blanks and take that burden onto ourselves, which is why we might come across as goofy when we say that.
Yeah, and not only that, some of the flaws we're making are objective flaws he made, but they didn't amount to anything. Like, for example, not taking the pills is like, should just be a flaw. It feels like a flaw, and for some reason he just stopped taking them, and that never amounted to anything. At least they never made it amount to anything. They might retroactively do it. Like I said, Orochimaru might say, oh, you should have kept taking those pills. Well, here's some new ones, whatever. Yeah. But that's just not as good as the way they could